So, a single social media post from the US president has just sent massive shockwaves through the world's capitals, all during a spiraling energy crisis. Today, we're going to break down exactly what was said, why it's causing such an uproar, and what it might mean for, well, pretty much everyone. And there it is. That's the post that set this whole thing off. It was aimed squarely at allies like the UK and France. You can really feel the frustration here. Basically, President Trump is saying that America's closest partners just aren't stepping up in this conflict with Iran, a conflict that's just shut down one of the most important shipping lanes on the planet. I mean, it's a pretty stunning thing to say, right? Especially when global markets are going haywire. So what's really going on here? To get to the bottom of it, we need to look at the geography of this crisis. And more importantly, we need to follow the oil.
Okay, so the answer to that big question really starts with a map. See, this whole international incident revolves around one single, narrow strip of water. It's the world's oil choke point, and it's the flashpoint for everything.
This is the Strait of Hormuz. You can basically think of it as the world's energy superhighway. A full fifth, over 20%, of the entire planet's oil supply has to pass through here. So when Iran blockaded it, they effectively grabbed the world's economy by the throat. And the results? They were immediate. The markets completely freaked out. The price of Brent crude oil, that's the international standard, just shot past $107 a barrel. That's a mind-blowing 45% increase since this whole thing started. And you know who feels that? We all do, every time we fill up our cars. So who actually needs all this oil that's stuck behind the blockade? This is where it gets really, really interesting. When you dig into the data, the president's frustration starts to make a lot more sense. The numbers tell a very clear story. First, let's look at where the oil is coming from. It's all coming from a small handful of nations right there in the Persian Gulf. Saudi Arabia and Iraq alone account for more than half of all the oil that passes through the strait. It's a super concentrated supply chain. But now, here's the kicker. Where is all that oil going? The answer is, overwhelmingly, Asia. China is by far the biggest customer, grabbing almost 38% of it. India, South Korea, Japan, they're all huge importers. And the United States? Look at that tiny little sliver right there. We only get about 2.5%. And this chart just puts it in stark black and white. Put together, Asian countries get almost 90% of the oil that flows through that strait. The US gets a tiny fraction of that. So the question being asked in Washington is pretty simple. Why should the US military bear all the cost and risk of protecting a shipping lane that our allies depend on way, way more than we do? You can see how this huge difference in who needs the oil is causing some major problems. It's like the US is the security guard, but not the main customer, and that is leading to some seriously fractured alliances and very public, very tense arguments between old friends. And yeah, the American administration is not being subtle about it. The US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth basically called out the UK directly, questioning why its famous Royal Navy wasn't out there protecting its own energy supply. The UK's response has been a bit more, well, diplomatic. Their Defense Secretary, John Healey, is talking about de-escalation and creating a coordinated international plan. So a much calmer approach, focused on everyone working together instead of one country taking military action. Meanwhile, other allies like Japan, who also get a ton of oil from the region, seem to be trying to just wait it out. This comment from a Japanese official is pretty revealing. They're basically saying, hey, the president posts a lot of stuff online, let's not panic and assume this is official policy just yet. And that brings us to the bigger picture here, because this whole incident, it isn't just a random outburst. It's actually a perfect demonstration of what people are calling the Trump doctrine, a really fundamental shift in how America deals with the rest of the world. It really all comes down to these three pillars. First, diplomacy isn't about long-term relationships anymore. It's transactional. It's about making deals. Second, the military only gets involved when it directly serves a core U.S. interest. And third, America's massive economic power is used as a tool to get what it wants from both enemies and friends. And this, right here, is the key takeaway. That go get your own oil message is the Trump doctrine in action. It's an attempt to redefine what an alliance even is. It's moving away from the U.S. acting as a global policeman and towards a model where partners are expected to pay up and provide for their own security. So this whole standoff in the Strait of Hormuz, it's about way more than oil tankers and angry tweets. It leaves us with a huge question about the future. Are we just watching a temporary squabble between allies? Or is this the beginning of a brand new era of global security?
a more transactional world, where every nation is truly expected to fight for itself.
Subscribe to my channel